right now on The Hollywood Reporter in Focus.
I didn't think this was going to be made into a movie. I think this was, once this started happening and books started being turned into movies, still didn't bet on this one. It's too complicated.
People have sort of a cursory knowledge of what happened in 2008, but when you start peeling away the layers of the fraud, it's incredibly terrifying.
We're going to be taking an in-depth look at the comic drama The Big Short, with the actors and the creative minds behind the film. On this episode, we have Adam McKay, director and co-screenwriter, Michael Lewis, author of the book The Big Short, Christian Bale, Dr. Michael Burry, Steve Carell, Mark Baum, and Ryan Gosling, Jared Bennett.
You know what? I'm pissed off.
American people
We're getting screwed by the big banks.
And I am getting madder and madder.
It's unbelievable.
Then this guy walks into my office and says,
"There's some shady stuff going down. A few outsiders saw what no one else could.
The whole world economy might collapse.
I'm sure the world's banks have more incentives than greed."
"You're wrong."
Welcome to The Hollywood Reporter in Focus, The Big Short. I'm Matt Bellany, executive editor of The Hollywood Reporter, and I'm pleased to have with us today Michael Lewis, the author of The Big Short, Adam McKay, the co-writer and director of The Big Short, and three of the film's stars, Ryan Gosling, Steve Carell, and Christian Bale. This is a dramatic work. It's a funny movie. It's obviously a topical movie, but at its heart, to me, it seems like a piece of advocacy filmmaking. Where did that come from, and how did you get involved in this?
Really, what excited me about the book was the idea that you were able to be taken into this really elaborate, complicated world through these characters that you identified with, that were outsiders, that were vulnerable, that thought differently. So I always looked at it as a character piece that took us into a world we weren't familiar with. And I just never read anything like that. So when I read the book, I couldn't put it down. It had such a mixture of it was entertaining, it was tragic, it was sometimes heartbreaking, and yes, a little bit educational. So, as far as being, having a political or policy sort of position to it, I never really looked at it that way. I just looked at it as exposing and showing a world, and most of all, these characters.
But the one difference from the book is that it's funny.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute, the one difference with the book.
So glad he said it. It would have been weird if I said it.
But why was that decision made? Why was the satirical angle?
I will actually disagree. I will actually say the book was very funny. There were a lot of things in the book that made me laugh. There was always an energy and excitement to the story, especially in the first half, where it was almost like card counters, guys who had figured out how to beat the casino, and you were on their side because we all hate the banks or the casino.
Of your books, did you think this would be one that would be adapted?
It's only recently my books have started being made into movies. So when I wrote this, none of them, The Blind Side hadn't been made. Mm-hmm. So I didn't, the movie business bought my books, but I assume they bought them to bury them. I mean, I didn't think this was going to be made into a movie. I think this was, once this started happening and books started being turned into movies, still didn't bet on this one. It's too complicated, I thought the only way you do it well is to embrace the complexity, and I don't think anybody would have the balls to do that, basically.
So what were those conversations like? Did you have conversations about how to explain that?
He doesn't care what I think.
Once again, I'm glad he said it, because if I said it,
no,
comes off
it's really important that he doesn't care what I think.
He always told us that.
Yeah, no, I know.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's his qualification for the job, is that he doesn't care what I think.
But did you ever ask?
Yeah, that's not true. I definitely checked in with him. I checked in with you. I gave you the script. We talked about my approach to it. You were really supportive. You were great. You were kind of like the dream author in the sense that you had some input, but you didn't, fight what I was doing. Maybe you were patronizing me the entire time. I just realized that.
No, we were patronizing each other at
the
same time.
It was just
it was a question of who was getting on top of that.
Okay.
Because that was all that was going on. Because what he had to do was break it and remake it. I mean, a book is not a movie. It's so different in so many ways. And when I heard he was going to do it, I thought, perfect. It's perfect. Because the only way you get this across to an audience, and the only way, the reason the book worked is people thought the book was funny. I mean, they were interested in and the characters were funny. Nobody wants to read about credit default swaps. Nobody wants to see a movie about them. And I thought, if anybody can bring this alive and make it entertaining, it's him. So the relationship is, he's sort of, because I'm alive instead of dead, and that's an inconvenient fact, that he has to sort of like, he doesn't want me running around saying he ruined my work of art. And so he was nice about, we went and had lunch and all the rest, and I really like him. But he did it all by himself. I mean, I contributed nothing.
Well, I'm a huge fan as well. I've read everything he's written. So it was a thrill for me. I mean, the reason I read the book was I love your writing. So there was just a certain degree of fun to having conversations with you. And he's also working on a TV show with our composer, who's also a producer. So Michael sort of has some tendrils in different directions.
But anyway, back to your original question. It's totally his. I can't believe how good it is. I was really reassured that someone like him saw that thought you could do this, because the only way it works is if he does it if it's big and popular.
Now, you guys, playing real people, tell us how you approached that, the consulting you did with the real life guys or non-consulting.
In my case, the character I play is loosely based on a real person, but he's also the narrator of the film, and he's sort of the tour guide through this world. So it was interesting. I mean, it was a challenge because, trying to sort of, play him, but at the same time have one foot outside of the movie and basically be, almost like a talk show host or something. So, we worked a lot together on trying to find what that tone is, and I talked a lot to the real person, and sort of explained to him that that's what I was doing and that I'd have to sort of.
What were those conversations like?
They were. It would be the same if someone was playing you.
I'd be nervous as hell.
You'd want to know, and you feel a responsibility to that. And I mean, I wouldn't want someone to play me. So, unless it was Steve or Steve. I like Steve. But actually, I want to talk to you about that.
Nobody's buying CDO or mortgage bonds anymore, and everybody wants swaps.
Swaps are now the most popular product on the street.
That's good for us.
Yes and no.
I heard from somebody who heard from somebody. No, Alex. No. Sorry. Benny Klieger over at
Morgan is taking on some heavy losses in the bond department. Might be time to get a life jacket and get out.
I mean, seriously, I feel like I'm financially inside of you or something.
Okay.
I'm jacked.
I'm jacked to the tits!
Good.
Do you feel it?
No.
Steve, how about you with Steve Eisman? What was that about?
Approached him with utter disregard. It's, exactly the opposite. I can't imagine how daunting it is to see a version of your life put up on screen. I met with him. We had breakfast. I didn't spend too much time with him. I read up on him. There wasn't, aside from the book, a lot that I could find out about him, but just tried to glean a sense of who he was and what he had gone through during this period and why he made the choices that he chose to make.
Other than changing his name in the film, was there anything specific that he asked you to not include about him or his personality? Because it has kind of a gruff personality.
That right now?
Yeah, well, and for that reason, that's an odd question.
No, but not specific.
Are there secrets that he would like?
Listen, I can be perceived as an ass.
Right.
Please,
No,
don't
he
go
didn't say
overboard.
no. He was very gracious that way and very generous about revealing himself and inviting me over to his house, and I met his wife and I met his kids. So no, there was none of that. I'm sure there were trepidations. You just don't know. He was there on set a few days watching. I think he saw the film and apparently enjoyed it.
He loved it. Yeah.
I can't imagine what that's like to see someone doing a version of who you are. He said he had better hair. That was his one comment. He's like, because he was very, very proud of his hair. He said, my wife married me because of my hair.
Wow.
So he held his hair in high regard.
How about Dr. Michael Burry?
Michael was very accessible. He came to visit the set a number of times, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
And he's a fascinating individual. I got to go and spend a day with him, and we sat down, and we kind of had a schedule of we'd do this, and then we'd go for lunch, and then we'd tour around him, and it ended up that I sat down in the morning, and then it was dark, and we hadn't stopped talking. We just talked for it was like 8 or 9 hours straight. Incredibly charming and wonderful conversationalist. I became very, very fond of him.
So Mike Burry, a guy who gets his hair cut at Supercuts and doesn't wear shoes, knows more than Alan Greenspan and Hank Paulson.
Yeah, Dr. Mike Burry, yes, he does. I don't believe he's seen the film yet. I was hoping I'd be able to sit and watch it with him last night, but I think he's seeing it in New York. But I love playing real characters because you create a mannerism or whatever it may be, and the director might question that. You've got the evidence. You can just, if the person's on the set, call them over and just chat with them for a little bit and go, see, right? You know, there it is, all right? So then you get away with it rather than if it's entirely fictional. Sometimes it can seem sort of ego-driven to be creating mannerisms that might be quite unique or eccentric, you know. But I really immensely enjoyed getting to know Mike and hope very much that he'll tolerate what I've done.
The book and the film both go into detail on the kind of person who does this kind of thing, who bets against the conventional wisdom, who, you know, is looking at bad things happening and betting on that happening. Do you consider yourself that kind of a person?
No.
No?
No, very conventional. Really. So the only thing that's odd about me is where I'm from. I grew up in New Orleans, and the rest of the country feels like an alien place to me. So there's a bit of, it's dissipated with time because I've left, but I remember very strong feelings very early on in adulthood, feeling I was a Martian visiting Earth. And so I've had that view of American life. I'm interested in these characters, but I don't think I'm like that.
Well, we talked about the idea that the people that take the short position in Wall Street, they don't look healthy. Like if you see someone who's a short, isn't this true?
It's absolutely true.
Yeah, that it actually takes a toll on you because you're betting against the hope of the future. And that a lot of these guys look hunched over and pale, and it's a rough road. And it's what happened to Dr. Burry.
Yeah.
Dr. Burry almost had part of his lower intestine removed. He was having such stomach issues. And as soon as he unwound his position, all the problems went away.
Wow.
So it's a really hard, uncomfortable position to be against the mainstream, to be against. And I actually think in some ways that's the core of the movie. There's a lot of cores of the movie, but I think that idea of how hard it is to step away from the pack and say you're wrong, no one wants to do that. Everyone wants to be at the party and they want to be a part of what's going on. And when I heard that there was actual physical effects on people that are short in Wall Street, I thought that is fascinating.
Did you worry in the movie that the audience would have a hard time rooting for the financial collapse of the country?
No, I mean, what I loved about it from the book, from the story, is how complex it is, that you're rooting for these guys because they're sort of like us. They're outsiders. You know, in a sense, they're doing their job. Like the way the market's supposed to work is if there's a bad investment, you short it. So they're kind of doing their job. And then obviously the story expands times 10 once they realize they're shorting themselves. They're shorting actual reality. And then it gets scary and very complicated. So no, I always loved the fact that the heroes weren't clean, that they weren't all wearing white hats. I wanted them to be complex. Because I just don't think that's ever how heroes work. I mean, you look at Gandhi, used to cat around when he was young, and MLK, and like people are complicated.
How familiar were you with these issues before reading the book?
I knew about what happened, but not the
personal stories.
No, certainly not. And you know, we all have personal stories that relate to that time, but the minutia of what went down, no, I really didn't. I didn't have any great grasp until I read the book of what had happened. And I think that's part of the reason it's so important, is that I think, and the movie starts out that way, that it's important that people have sort of a cursory knowledge of what happened in 2008, but when you start peeling away the layers of the fraud and the duplicity, it's incredibly terrifying. And that aspect of it, I wasn't terrified in 2008. It was a news report, and it was affecting a lot of people, but I didn't know the depth of it.
Mm-hmm. How can the banks let this happen?
It's fueled by stupidity.
But that's not stupidity, that's fraud.
Tell me the difference between stupid and illegal, and I'll have my wife's brother arrested.
The position that it takes, this idea that it's intentionally alienating, is like a liberating idea, or certainly was for me. You know, it sort of takes some of the pressure off, and it allows you. You know, I think that they're both assuming the best of you and that you can understand this and that it's, by just sort of breaking it down in the way that they have, it's sort of, it really shows you that it's true, that it is something that is probably meant to just make you feel stupid so that you don't ask questions.
What do you hope to accomplish ultimately with this film? Who do you hope sees it, and what kind of possible change do you hope to affect?
First and foremost, I hope that people come and they hook with these characters. They hook with this story emotionally. And then at the end of the day, I hope they just feel closer to these events, like they can suddenly say something about this, that maybe a few conversations start. There's been several presidential debates where they don't even talk about bank reform, which is insanity. And I just hope that, if there's movies like this, if there's books, if there's other movies coming out, that won't happen.
Of those people at these presidential debates, do you think any of them will do anything? Hillary? Bernie Sanders?
Nothing significant, no. I think Bernie Sanders would, but I don't think he'd ever have the Congress to back him. They would block him at every turn. It's really about Congress, not so much the president.
Right.
Congress has the power. I mean, you could fix this in a week. Like, it's not hard. Like, have a clearinghouse for derivatives. You can see what's being traded, where the risk is going. Bring back a new version of Glass-Steagall, have a transaction tax, and then probably 4 other things that Michael could say too. But it's not hard. We had these rules for 40 years and we had no boom-bust cycle. And then all of a sudden we got rid of them, we deregulated them, and those are Democrats and Republicans did that. And then boom, we're right back on this boom-bust cycle. It's ridiculous.
Not even Trump?
Steve Carell loves Trump, so I don't want to cross any lines here. I don't want to get him upset.
No, I've made no bones about that.
Yeah. Ryan's a Carson guy, Carell's a Trump guy, so let's not talk about it.
Your affiliations have just been outed, so.
Yeah.
But seriously though, Trump would make this better, worse, no difference.
I mean, that's like that's like saying
we have to ask that as a serious question now.
Appendectomy, would it make it better or worse if you threw a cat on it? Like, it's just raw insanity. I mean, it's like would this help if we set 20 house cats loose in the White House? Like, America starts to crumble at that point.
You're right. Christian, how is working with Adam different than some of these directors you've worked with, like Chris Nolan or David O. Russell?
Adam uses a microphone, and so he didn't have to actually look at me. So I was just kind of prisoner inside of my office, and he would just talk to me and give me shit and say, "That's crap, do it again," and make jokes.
It's all accurate. It's all accurate.
That was it. But very good vibes, very good vibrations on the set. He creates the crew love working with him. It was a very fun set, but really creative at the same time. Fantastic.
Yeah, Adam will only talk to you if you bring a bag of hamburgers and you go to a graveyard.
Oh,
that's the only time.
That sounds like a story. What's the story there?
No, that's just the way he gives notes. Is that you grab a bag of hamburgers and you go to a graveyard, and Adam tells you how to.
No, it's just what it is it sounds crazier than you're hearing it. It's that when you're on the set, there's a crew around you, and I want to have time with the actor. Mm-hmm. And I want somewhere that's quiet, and usually we're hungry, so I get a sack full of hamburgers, and I'll look for a graveyard. And we go and we sit there.
Nothing odd about that.
Yeah, no, it sounds, the way he said it sounds crazy. And we'll sit in a rainy graveyard for 2 hours and just talk about acting.
And you were in New Orleans, so there are graveyards everywhere.
There are graveyards everywhere.
Yes.
So no, he made it sound crazy, but it's pretty standard stuff. And then a lot of times I'll take them into, if we're in a building, there'll be a boiler room, and we'll go into the...
They really did, yes.
Yeah, we did.
Really
I took Christian into a boiler room for 3 hours and just screamed at him in a bunch of, and mostly in German. Just screamed at him. Yeah,
it really helped. It really helped. I got it. I got it.
Helped. Yeah.
One take.
Yeah.
Steve, how is working with Adam different on this movie than, say, Anchorman or some of the more outrageous comedies?
It was more similar than you'd think because he's the same person directing both movies. He's incredibly smart and really funny and obviously the difference was the passion that he had for this subject matter. Not that he wasn't passionate about newscasters in the 70s, but it's a different, it's a different animal. And I think that approach was completely different. But the freedom that he gave actors was absolutely the same. And our ability to improvise and to discover things and to fail was exactly the same.
You didn't really let me improvise.
Really?
No.
You guys should know that. Christian couldn't improvise. I kept yelling, "Read the words I wrote. I didn't write them for nothing."
On his mic going, yeah, nope,
Nope.
yep, yep,
You forgot an and.
yeah, yeah.
Also, I've never worked on a film that was shot that way before. That was so, I thought that.
How so?
Well, just that the cameras were really in the corner of the room. They were never in, there wasn't like close-ups or, there wasn't coverage at all.
You never knew where
he
the
hid
camera
the cameras,
was
it was
going to
long
be.
lenses, they were on a zoom, and so you really were free to play the scene in many different ways. And he would sort of, you'd do it to the script, and then you'd sort of abstract it until it was sort of like coming off the rails, and then he would bring it back in the end. And I'd never worked that way, and I thought that it really kind of brought the best out of all of us.
That's Barry Ackroyd is, amazing at that. He loves the long lens style.
And that's where you get this zoom in and out and all
Yeah,
over.
and you get that intimacy between the actors. You're not in their way. I love it too. I don't know if I'll ever do anything but that in the future. I liked it so much.
You knew you had to make these complicated things relatable. How did you come up with the fun and different ways that you were going to explain these CDOs, like Margot Robbie or the Jenga Tower or any of that other stuff?
That was all in the book. Right?
Every bit of it.
Yeah, I think everything.
Margot Robbie in a
You
bathtub.
predicted Margot Robbie would be a huge star.
He even had a Paramount logo in his book. It was really weird when you read it. No, I think the idea was we kept talking about why doesn't our pop culture, even pop culture isn't the right word, why doesn't our mainstream culture tell us this stuff? Why aren't we learning about this on the news? Why aren't we learning about it through documentaries? Why aren't we hearing people talk about it? Why isn't it discussed in debates? And what are we hearing about instead? So there was this whole idea for the movie that we were gonna have pop icons showing up. We were gonna have like Morgan Freeman at one point was gonna narrate the movie. And then suddenly he was going to say, like, it's showing off the, ratings for the movie that you're tired of me. So now here's Tom Brady to narrate the movie. And we had this whole crazy idea. It was a bit too much. The form became too loose and all over the place. But what stuck were those explanations. I love the idea of seeing, these pop icons that you're so familiar with give you real salient information. It's just very strange to have Margot Robbie in a bathtub explain what went wrong with MBSs. You could almost do a whole series of Margot Robbie in a bathtub explains, algorithms. Margot Robbie in a bathtub explains.
Sequel.
Yeah. So, it was a bit of a joke. It was a bit of a comment on our popular culture and what is the information that we're getting from it. And it also just felt like, because it was an ensemble movie and it had this loose kind of playful feeling to it, it felt like it could roll in that rhythm as well.
And how did you settle on these guys?
Settle is the operative word. I auditioned and auditioned.
Did you see Steve as that guy?
Never.
Why
Never.
now? Why do you immediately go to that?
Because you guys had worked together
why,
before.
Why in this cast of fantastic actors did you?
But you had worked together before, and
Yes.
this was a kind of a guy who had that high tension to him.
No, the truth is these were like the dream choices. I don't think it's ever happened before where whenever I write the script, I like to think of people, and these are the guys I was thinking of when I was writing the script. Usually they don't say yes. So, I just had these crazy actors that I admire and love sort of in mind. And a bunch of great, luck came together, and that these gentlemen had some free time and responded to the material and were excited to get to work on it. So, yeah, it was amazing. I've never, ever experienced that before. And then it continued through the rest of the cast. We had Francine Maisler was our casting director, and she just kept bringing in these amazing actors, people like Jeremy Strong and Finn Wittrock, John Maggiero and Hamish and Rafe Spall.
They're all so good.
They're all great.
So good.
And Melissa Leo for one scene.
Melissa Leo just smokes that scene. Yeah, and Marissa Tomei, like, you gotta be kidding me. Tracy Letts, the scene with Tracy Letts and Christian where he comes to his office, I just could watch that scene over and over again.
You have no confidence in your ability to identify macroeconomic trends.
You flew here to tell me that? Why? Anyone could see that there's a real estate bubble.
Actually, no one can see a bubble. That's what makes it a bubble.
That's dumb, Lawrence. It's always markers. Mortgage fraud, quintupled since 2000, and the average take-home pay. It's flat, but home prices are soaring. That means the homes are debt, not assets.
Give me an interesting anecdote about one of these actors, like a Melissa Leo or someone like that.
Well, Marissa Tomei is a thief. She will take shit out of your trailer. She will.
Really?
No.
But something from one of your scenes. I mean, you played opposite all these
Finn
actors.
Wittrock gets in a lot of fights. Like, I don't know. What do you guys think? Interesting anecdotes. I mean,
Whose idea were the sunglasses that Melissa Leo wears?
That was actually from the original Charles Randolph script.
Oh, okay.
And I loved it. I left it in there. That was the most
so
genius
funny.
idea. Yeah. You know, or here's one of the funniest ones. Billy Magnussen plays one of the mortgage brokers with Max Greenfield, and he's the sweetest guy. And he shows up for like 2 days, and he's a young guy, so he's partying down in New Orleans. And at one point, he wants to do his laundry. So he sees a bunch of laundry in the washing machine on our wardrobe truck, and he takes it all out, and it's wet, so he just shoves it in the dryer. And then he puts his clothes in the washing machine. What he doesn't realize is these are like $15,000 worth of wardrobe for Carell. These are like Brioni, tailor-made.
And the next day, I put on my shirt. And I was like, I couldn't have gotten this fat
Overnight.
in one day. And and then we put 2 and 2 together. But
He felt so bad too. He's like, I messed up.
you fired him after that.
I did. Fired him and sued him.
In front of everyone.
Yeah, in front of everyone.
Yeah.
It was a public firing.
Christian, what's it like to do your scenes knowing that the rest of the movie is being created around you and you're not a part of most of that?
Fantastic. It was really great. It was really great. And we started, the whole film started with that, so everyone was sort of getting to test the waters with it, and it was nice, right? Because we were able to be. I suspect it was the most static set, right?
Without a doubt,
that you had, so we could really get comfortable in this one environment. And feel it all out and go through at a crazy number of pages each and every day, work at a really wonderful speed, which is fantastic. And it felt really great. And then it makes it so entertaining for me to watch the film at the end because I don't know anything about anything else that's going on in it at all. So it was wonderful.
What surprised you most then when you saw the final film?
It was really poignant. That was really what surprised me about it, because in reading the script, I could see it be really bloody funny in places from a character's point of view. And clearly Adam, knew how to do that and was going to do that really nicely. But it was how very meaningful and poignant and emotional I felt whilst watching the film. And there's that moment where, I forget the number, I think the number's 15 billion, right? That is said in a scene. And I found myself getting choked up over a number, which is a phenomenal thing, to achieve on Michael's part.
He had talked about the same thing. Michael pointed out that exact same
but I was going to
moment.
compliment you.
All right, I'll take the compliment.
I thought you were passing the compliment on to Michael.
Yeah.
No, he's doubling it up. He's giving a compliment from me to him.
So I get 2 compliments.
Right, because yours wasn't good enough.
Steve when does that ever happen? A number. And when I heard that number, I just got goosebumps.
You know where that also happens is when you write the number on the board with the fund 489 up 489%.
Right.
You're right. It is.
So
they're
it
emotional,
was
weird
how
emotional moments.
Emotional, yeah. It made me in watching it. Yeah.
The film says that poor people and minorities largely took the blame for this. What do you specifically mean by that?
Well, I think you're seeing it now where all of a sudden, rather than talking about trade policy, rather than talking about minimum wage, rather than talking about business stimulus, instead, what are we mostly talking about with the presidential campaigns? We're talking
Building
about
a wall.
Building a wall to keep immigrants out. And we had a census not too long ago, and it actually showed definitively more immigrants are leaving than coming in. So it's literally a non-issue. But I think what happens is people don't understand these complex financial structures and instruments.
You have no idea the kind of crap people are pulling, and everyone's walking around like they're in a damn Enya video.
They're all getting screwed, you know. You know what they care about? They care about the ball game. Or they care about what actress just went into rehab.
They know something's wrong and they go towards what they understand. You see the same thing in Greece. There's a rise in the neo-Nazi movement there. And this is always what happens whenever there's an economic fallout, whether it's immigrants, whether it's poor people.
What's the one thing that you three took away from this project? One thing you learned? It could be an acting lesson or something about the world.
What if they didn't learn anything?
Or maybe you didn't learn a thing.
Possible, right?
Yeah, it is
It could just
possible.
be like an experience that
It just happened.
just happened.
You always learn something. I mean, you know, you get to meet. It's a wonderful job in terms of that you get to have these very bizarre conversations. In this case, with real life individuals, and get to talk to them in a way that usually only a stalker would get to if you kind of tied them up. And because you get to really delve deep in a way that you just can't in everyday life. And so you learn so much about that character, and that's probably the most fun part, I think, of my job. And then I just listened to Adam and Michael, and I didn't pay any attention in school and left at 16, so it's all a learning experience for me, every bit of it.
How about you guys?
Well, it was learning. I don't think I have struggled learning a script as I did with this, because it was like learning a foreign language. I didn't have any prior knowledge of the financial world. I didn't grow up in it. I didn't really know people in it, and so it was all new to me. To kind of take a crash course in it in order to have some sense of what I was saying, and to be able to. And Adam likes to improvise too, so to have some stuff in our back pockets that we could then improvise within these characters and in this world. That was, I think, a learning experience.
Did it inspire you to want to invest and be more active in the financial market?
God, no.
Not at all.
No?
No.
You're not trying to identify your own shorting areas?
It's in a mattress. I sleep on it every night.
Well, the truth is, the
All of
subject
my
is
money.
stupefying, right? The only reason it's interesting is the characters.
Yeah.
The subject itself is absolutely
But
stupefying.
it made me want to identify places where maybe I could see something nobody else is seeing.
Oh, God.
And I know it would never happen.
You're going to lose all your money.
No, I mean, people spend their entire
it.
life becoming these guys.
Yeah,
so
you don't just do it.
Right.
No, it's my brother decided, you know what, I'm going to start investing, and I'm going to master the market. And he's a 60-year-old guy in Orange County. I'm like, well, it's not going to happen. You're an engineer, and he's a smart enough guy, but doesn't have that kind of acumen. And I don't think it's something that you just pick up overnight. It's not. I don't think it's that intuitive. I think you really need to. You have to have been brought up in it and have learned it from the ground, level.
I was dumb enough to start thinking I could short things. And I actually was talking to a friend of mine. We were talking about McDonald's. We're like, McDonald's, they can't keep selling this food they're selling. It's everything's getting better. They're going to go down. So I called my business manager. I was like, I want to short McDonald's. And he goes, and Lewis really knows how funny this is. And my guy goes, boy, I think that's a bad idea. And he goes, let me check with our guys and see how it looks. And okay, because I really like Shake Shack, and I think McDonald's is done. I think it's from a bygone era. And he goes, yeah, my guys are long on McDonald's. They actually say it's very strong. They're in a bunch of mutual funds, the real estate holdings they have. They are changing their menu. I go, all right, well, maybe I'll wait. And then since that time, McDonald's has gone up 25%. It just goes up, and Shake Shack's kind of stuck around where it was. So my guys saved me from that, yeah.
Ryan, how about you? What'd you learn?
Yeah, I think, I think I'm like the audience on this one. I really felt like this was something maybe I thought I understood, but I really didn't. And I also felt like on a certain level, it's probably then something that I couldn't understand. But I think what Michael did by sort of just finding really fascinating characters at the heart of all of it is why you're able to, connect to it emotionally, and therefore you want to understand it because you want to understand these characters. And I think what Adam has done is made it accessible and really cast such a wide net in terms of avenues for understanding. I mean, even though Margot Robbie and Selena Gomez and all of those those things are fun and they're great, and those people are great in the movie. It's also another avenue to grab an audience that might not necessarily see the film or might not necessarily think that they could understand it. So,
Did making this movie make you guys more cynical or more hopeful?
I didn't differentiate between cynicism and hope. It terrified me, but I think it's like a horror movie. It's a romp until it's not, and then it's a horror movie. And I think it creeps up on you and surprises you.
That's terrifying.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I know, now I'm cynical.
Yeah. That's actually, we're going to put that on the poster.
Well, I don't
It's a
know. I
romp
think
until it's
that the
not.
book and the film are leave me feeling optimistic, just in a sense that it's something that it's information that it feels like it's in the process of being, disseminated to the masses, and like the code is being broken, And I guess I hope that the people like the film, because it'd be great to see more films like it. I think it's so great that Adam can take such an entertaining approach to subject matter like this, and I think that might just be the way to sort of start the dialogue. I mean, even already, I've only been to a few screenings, but immediately afterwards, the conversations after the film are very different than after any other sort of whatever premiere screening that I've been to.
Me, much more hopeful, just because of Mike Burry. He's an attorney. He really. It's unusual for him to go for a short. He loves longs, and he's a very optimistic man.
Thank you all very much. I would like to thank Michael Lewis, Ryan Gosling, Steve Carell, Christian Bale, and Adam McKay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. That was a pleasure.